uh, Professor Bala and friends. I thought this was going to be an interactive session, so I think the time would best be spent interacting with each other. Let me just say a couple of things first. First of all, let me compliment Professor Bala because I did not realize that amongst his many talents, singing was one of them. I guess as we both are at the same age, you have a given career ahead of you should you choose to change your career. I don't share that talent, so it deprives me of that opportunity. I don't know how to start other than to say that it's a great pleasure to be here today because I think sitting in this room are all of you who constitute the human capital of this country in the years to come. And someone like me at my age looks back and says that over these years we have created a name for ourselves as a country of tremendous brain power and human capital. And the one thing that makes that happen is an opportunity, hopefully for all Indians, to have the development available to them to play a role in society. And you have a very important and responsible role to play as we move forward, hopefully taking India to newer heights and higher heights than it has been, and with global recognition. Before I end, I'd just like to say that what I've said to many other business schools, that as you move forward as perhaps a small content of a large nation, there are many, many other Indians who have not had this opportunity that you have had. So as you prosper and as you grow, think of giving back to the nation in one form or another, some of what you have gained, so that others too can shine like you have. And with that, the nation will go on. And I say this particularly because many business schools have tended to float in the glory of what they themselves have achieved, and I think each of you will have a responsibility in your own way to serve society as you go forward. And let's not forget that we have hundreds of millions of people who don't have this opportunity and who could also shine just like you do. Perhaps this is as good a time to do what the program says, and that's to be interactive, and I'd be happy to attempt to respond, duck, or evade questions that you may have as we go forward. I don't know how much time we... Bala, how much time do we have? Okay. So I throw it open to you. I'd be happy to.
So my name is Zohaib. I wanted to ask you, when you're handling such a big conglomerate like the Tata Group of Industries, there could be many issues coming by the minute and suggestions and all sorts of stuff. So how do you manage and the time, in the sense, how do you respond to which query is the most important, because every decision would be a make or break deal?
You know, I think it would be incorrect or extremely arrogant to say that I manage the group on a minute-by-minute basis. I'm very fortunate to have colleagues who I think are tremendously capable. The flip side of that is that you get every problem that there is in the company. And as I've often said, whenever there's a bad thing that happens, it's always my face that's in the papers. The good news is often has the faces of some of my colleagues who of course have made the good news. I haven't made the bad news, but I still get my picture in the paper for that. So is periodically dealing with problems as they are presented to me rather than running the company minute to minute. Sorry, I just want to add something. My role that I don't get too much time for is perhaps to look into the future as much as we can to see where the group might go and where it might choose to enter in terms of new areas of business or grow in their current business. And that, I think, would be the most useful role that I could play in an organization.
Good morning, sir. This is Bharat Maheshwari here. Sir, Tata Sons has had a very rich culture and legacy. So my question to you is, how do you deal with the legacy that you had, and what were the stumbling blocks you faced when you first started off as heading of Tata Sons?
What do you mean by legacy?
JRD
business legacy or
business legacy?
If we talk of the legacy of Mr. JRD Tata, you know, inevitably when you step into somebody's shoes, when the shoes are huge and big, you ask yourself a question: how do I fill those shoes? And the dilemma I had at that time was exactly that. Do I attempt to be a carbon copy of Mr. J.R.D. Tata, whom I loved and respected very much? He was almost like a surrogate father to me in the company. Or do I do my own thing? The route I chose was to do my own thing only because I realized that I could never fill his shoes. I could never be another J.R.D. Tata. I could only be whatever I was, and embarked to do that. I've always treasured the legacy that he has left behind, and have tried to emulate him in terms of his value systems and his ethical behavior, but done my own thing in terms of working for the group. So I think that's as honest an answer as I can give you.
Sir, this is Ashish. Sir, you have taken the Tata Group through exponential growth in your tenure, and now you're looking out for a successor. So what do you think are the challenges your successor would face, and what are the skills you are looking for in your successor?
Well, I hope to start with, I hope I could leave my successor with a legacy like I received. What one is looking for in a successor, I think, first and foremost, would be someone who would uphold the values of the group that have been the foundation of the group over 100 years. Those values have to be lived and not in one's lips because you have to, in a manner of speaking, lead by example and not by mandate. And if there's one thing I noticed about JRD was that he lived every bit of the kind of life he mandated or demanded of his colleagues. In addition to that, I would that my successor would have entrepreneurial and entrepreneurial spirit and an ability to lead the group. Other issues are than the first.
So, sir, in all these years at the helm of Tata, has there ever been a day when you decided, okay, this is it, I'm not going back to Tata the next day? So in such a scenario, what has been your strongest motivator, if that has ever occurred? And what has been your strongest motivator at all these years with the Tata Group?
The first thing you described has happened on more than one occasion. Some of it before I took over as chairman, and perhaps once or twice after that. It's never been an issue of quitting or walking away. So the motivation has only been of doing that has been an issue of principle, and the flip side of that also has been that of principle. You know, let me say that there have been. I'll give you an example. Many years ago, when I was in Nelco, which is a rather difficult job to start with, JRD gave me 2 textile mills, of which I knew nothing. And he gave me one which we turned around, and unfortunately, because that happened, I got a second one. So I was straddling 3 horses, 2 of which were a bit shaky. The third one, that was Nelco, was starting to come out of its problems. And I still remember, and this would be in the maybe late 70s, I still remember that there was an issue of Tata's investing, increasing the capital of the Empress Mills Nagpur by 50 lakhs of rupees, which they chose not to do. And the company went into liquidation. And at that time I felt there's no sense in my staying here. 50 lakhs Tatas could afford. The powers that be chose not to do it. And I felt a bit defeated. But I think you never quit under those circumstances. You feel like quitting, but you don't. And at that time I donated my bonus, whatever it was, to the officers who were not covered by government rules, and fought for some compensation for that mill. It did go into liquidation and is now part of the National Textile Corporation. So there have been issues like that. The motivation, I think, is a sense of not quitting or not losing.
Hello, sir. I'm Himanshu Agarwal. Sir, there has been a lot of talks that business of climate should be relevant to climate of business. So how do you think in future Tata as a group is working to actually maintain the carbon footprints and hence maintain profitability?
I didn't understand the question, sorry.
Saying that there are a lot of talks going on that business of climate should be relevant to climate of business. So how do you think in future as a leader, do you think Tata Group to go and to so that they maintain profitability and ways of ways maintain the carbon footprints?
No, but the climate you're referring to is the ethical climate or climate change?
Environmental conscious company, like they need to save on energy, they need to save on the consumption. So in that direction, how do you think Tata as a group, or TC as in IT, they are going for green IT. So how do you think Tata as a group is working, or how do you think in future they should work upon so that they give back to the society, plus they maintain the footprint and hence maintain profitability also?
Environment, okay. You know, I think a couple of years ago, decided that we should be conscious of the environment and what we were doing. We established a focal point within the group and within each of the companies to look at new technologies that would be clean, to evaluate our current technologies, to see at current processes to see whether we could make them cleaner than they were. Most of these require fairly large investments, so we have phased those investments in with our normal CapEx budgets. And we have, in a way, stayed away from dirty processes or polluting processes. We have tried to lead the industry in, for example, in pollution in the automotive area or emissions. We are looking at various forms of biofuel, which may be less polluting than current fuels, and we are looking at processes that may be totally different from what we're doing today. We believe that we will, I don't want to boast to say that we'd be the leaders, but we certainly wouldn't be the laggards in terms of what our consciousness and our ability to reduce carbon footprint and or emissions or pollutions of any sort, liquid or air.
Hello, sir. I'm Saloni Sehgal. My question is, how has the recent economic slump derailed your plans in case of Jaguar Land Rover acquisition?
You know, the economic meltdown that took place hit us very badly because both steel and automobiles in the rest of the world, particularly the Western world, were very badly hit. They were not so badly mauled in India. Question on Jaguar Land Rover, it was not of how we dealt with the downturn in terms of our plans. Our major challenge was how to maintain the R&D and the product development plans through that period of time. In other words, how to sustain ourselves with a lower level of sales and actually a loss situation, while making sure that we did not delay or cancel any of the product plans that we had, which were so necessary for the company when we came out of the recession. So what ended up happening is that we poured much more money into Jaguar Land Rover during that period than we had planned to, because the company's own resource generation was not there. We hope that will see Jaguar Land Rover emerge as a somewhat different company in terms of being ahead of where it was when it went into the recession.
Hello, sir.
Sir, I'm Nitya. I want to know, what is your vision of India in 2020?
Well, you know what I would like to see, and it sounds somewhat pedestrian, but what I would like to see in India be, whether it be 2020 or any other time, is a country with equal opportunity. What really hurts me is that you see so many people that you feel could really make a contribution, could really have sparkle in their spirit, a chance. And we've become a nation where whom you know, whose son you are, what family you come from, what caste you come from, what religion you come from, which part of the country you come from are more important in giving you that chance than being an Indian. And at such time that there's an environment that every person has an equal chance to education, has an equal chance to a good job based on his merit rather than any of these other considerations, I think that would be the kind of India that I would feel most proud of. I'm proud of India as it is, but I'm also very frustrated that we have these self-imposed constraints on us. And every time I see someone who, whether it be a slum dweller who's come into his own because of one movie that happened in the West, or whether it be someone who dug ditches but became well-to-do on his own. I just feel there's so much talent and so much capability that I would just like to see that marshaled and vulcanized in an India of tomorrow.
Hi, sir. I'm Sandeep Maheshwari. This was related to Tata Motors. Now, while funding JLR, that time it found tough to raise capital from the equity capital markets. So right now, is Tata Motors looking at diluting any of its subsidiaries, or at the parent level, is Tata Sons looking at diluting any of its stake in Tata Motors?
We did a bit of both those things. You may recall we had a rights issue in Tata Motors. The public did not take them. Tata Sons stepped in and took almost the entire issue. As it turned out, it wasn't such a bad thing because when the issue was made, it was at 300 odd rupees, and the market price for the shares was something like 150 or 140. And so they took that whole issue underwater, if you might. And today, of course, it's at 800, so it didn't turn out to be such a bad deal. So we increased our equity due to that circumstance. But we also had to look at bonds and convertible instruments where we might get partly diluted. As things have turned out, the $3 billion that we borrowed, we have completely repaid that loan. So the purchase of Jaguar Land Rover is now behind us. And the only capital we would raise would be to grow our business, which we would need to do because our size is more than doubled. But we will look at dilution and or indebtedness now that we've got our indebtedness down to a level that's more prudent than it was a year ago.
Sir, I'm Sushil here. Just wanted to ask you, Tata is everywhere, from Tata Tea to Tata Tele or Tata Nano and now water purifier. Do you have any plans to get into IPL franchisee or IPL franchisee?
IPL?
IPL, Indian Premier League. Cricket.
Cricket? Okay.
Or any other sports or games?
No, we don't have any, to be honest, we don't have any such plans at the present moment. We've had a long history of being involved with sports. I think we had several Olympic athletes in the company in one form or another in one of our companies. In the days of field hockey, I think we had almost 6 or 7 Olympic players there. But no, we have not thought of sponsoring a team. And from time to time, we've toyed with it. We have sponsored events. I think we got involved with tennis in Chennai some years ago and sponsored the tennis matches. We have participated in sponsoring. Sounds like we're doing everything in Chennai, but we sponsored Narayan Katikaran in the Formula One races initially. And we have not at the speculative and possibly the high cost, high risk part of sport.
Thank you, sir.
So, my name is Vishal Vikram, and so this question is about your Tata Nano Europe version. I read that you have plans to launch your Tata Nano in Europe. So, I want to ask what has been the responses of European people about this? Because you must have incurred some extra cost while changing that version. I mean, changing this Tata Nano into Europe version. Moreover, it will be segmented in a lower, yeah. So what has been the responses about of Europe?
You're right. The Nano for Europe would be a different vehicle to the one that there is here. It would have a bigger engine, would have more options on it, like power steering and such. It would be ready in 2 years' time. The response is going to be directly proportionate to the price at which we are able to launch it. It will obviously not be at $2,300 or whatever, but it would still be by far the most economic car in Europe, and it would not be a so-called city car that cannot be driven on the highway. That we could do today. So the responses, when we've displayed the response has been outstanding.
So, yeah.
Oh.
Sam Nupur, just one question. 3 months from now, each one of us would be stepping into the corporate world. And I think what would be best for us is to have three key things from you, which we will keep with us for the rest of our lives as business principles to go by. So any 3 things which you think would be kept in mind for the next generation business leaders.
I think in some ways I've already said them. I think you should ensure that you don't add to the eroding fabric of values and ethics, which I think is happening all around us. But there are givers and takers, and certainly, hopefully, people like yourself should be neither the giver or the taker of that rather depreciating game, because there's only one way to go, and that is down, and you can then be a colleague of the Indonesians or the others where corruption is the order of the day. The other is, I think, each of you, as I have said, should look at yourselves as potentially the leaders of tomorrow, and work on leading and not following, and being sure of yourselves. And lastly, those of you who do go out into the world, just don't forget that there are many millions of others who who have not had the chance, and don't scorn them. Try to help them.
Thank you, sir.
On that note, I think we are running out of time, and I really thank you very much. Let's give a very big hand to everyone.